Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Iron Canon podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld podcast network. There's no flag here. Where'd it go? It's in San Diego for in-depth discussion on the lore of the High Republic and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I'm coming to you, as always, from Underworld North Studio here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Joined across the continent by your friend of mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
Good. I finally got my battery problem with my chair fixed, so that's nice. And it's been pleasant weather, more or less, so that's
Nice.
been good.
So it's got mobility and better mobility and the ability to weather to enjoy it in. That's great. Yeah, this week, season one of the Acolyte is in the books, which means it's time for a classic Ion Canon look back. I know we did the episode by episode looks, but we're doing the usual thing here. We're discussing the overall character arcs, ideas, and themes of this engaging and provocative show. And apparently there's some news that dropped this weekend, and today we're gonna go into all the Acolyte tie-in announcements, and again some news that dropped today of all time. So to do that, we just happened to line this up. This just happened to line up perfectly because we just happened to have the all-time greatest Mon Mothma fan in the universe, in the galaxy, universally recognized.
This was
Ash.
not planned, I promise.
We honestly, like, you just happened to line up. Coming from about an hour's drive west of here. Ash, good to see you again. How are you doing? You're kind of a bit choppy. Hopefully the Wi-Fi turns out. You doing all right? You doing good?
Oh no.
Oh no. Let's see. Yeah. On that note, we'll get her back. We'll get her back. There we go. On that, we'll come back in. We'll do the plugs. Get the plugs out of the way first, because we definitely want to hear about Ash.
Hello.
I'm
sorry.
Okay.
Oh goodness.
There we go.
I think so.
So it was working fine before
Hello.
the show, and now we're things. Anyway, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Iron Cannon Pod, EYEON CANONPOD. And YouTube, Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. We've got YouTube memberships. We've got super chats. We've got all that fun stuff. The Star Wars Underworld Discord server. I can support the channel. Well, first of all, with the YouTube membership, support the channel and super chats. If you comment the normal comment and it fits with the flow of the conversation, we'll fit it in. We'll try and get to them anyway, but if you super chat us, support the channel, support the network, then you're guaranteed to get your comment bumped to the top of the pile. While we sort of the tech things, Joel, the Discord server, talk about the Discord server and events going on.
Yes. I haven't announced it yet, but I think we are going to be doing another game night. We had one last Friday. Very quiet affair. Maybe this week again we will having a game night. Probably some Fortnite, maybe some Fall Guys, maybe Hunters if my whatever controller thing is works, and more. And yeah, all lots of fun on Discord. Join us. We watch Young Guy Adventures sometimes too.
There you go. And yeah, sorry, I'm dealing with this here. Yeah, and definitely, we're there. It's a good community to chat and converse and enjoy Star Wars, enjoy fandom. I'm sure is there a thread about Deadpool and Wolverine yet, or at least there's a Marvel thread. We know that.
No, but I guess I can make one right now.
Well, don't worry about that. Just make like there's the Marvel thread. You can chat about stuff in Marvel. There we go. And yeah, so check that out, the Discord server, and the link in the description below. One last plug. One last plug to get the Tractor Beam Comics reviews. Wednesdays are for comics. Comics are for Wednesdays. Along with the flag where Dom is, Chris is also was in San Diego, and he's coming out and about and back and forth. So this past week I took off Tractor Beam. This coming week I'm gonna continue it. I'm gonna pick up on the book from last week, Darth Vader number 48, and fly solo. Try to do another solo flight on the Tractor Beam Comics reviews. There's also Darth Maul, black, white, and red. And for reasons that make sense, of course, I I got a chance to read the Leia 2015 comic by Mark Waid, and Leia 2015 comic by Mark Waid, and yeah, because that's gonna show up again in the ongoing by Charles Soule at the end there. So you might maybe talk about that. All right, Ash, how are we doing?
I don't know if you can see me yet.
We can hear you and see you. So
it's just been work.
Yeah.
Oh, great, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been nonstop work this past weekend.
Right.
I work in a cinema.
There.
So you can imagine
Yeah, a lot
the amount of stress
Deadpool,
that I am
Wolverine.
under.
Yeah.
But gotta make that money.
Yeah, you know how it is. Deadpool, Wolverine. As we're just talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. Yeah. So good. Yeah, pretty fun film. In the House of Mouse. Sorry, we're still. It was again. So most guests, they come in. We figured tech. Ash, you were good. You came in early.
It's when we started the show that everything decided to turn against us.
You know.
As it does.
That's okay. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So, hopefully that'll all work out. In the meantime, we might as well head right into it. We did get the news. We get the news, and again, Ash, I do want to hear what you have to say about all this. But in the meantime, we'll Joel and I we can keep it going. Keep the party running. Sorry, just doing too many different things at once here.
You want me to do the opening news for you?
No, I got it. We're good. It's just multitasking, ADHD, all that stuff. Okay, focused. Yeah. So as mentioned off the top, Star Wars had a moment at San Diego Comic-Con. Star Wars publishing, especially High Republic and the Acolyte, especially had a moment at San Diego Comic-Con. First off, just a bunch of news. The whole panel. Yeah, there's a bit about Outlaws and some other releases rather, but I'm gonna focus on just mainly the Acolyte and High Republic. So first off, and I'll do a rundown, and then at one point I'm gonna pause, but I'm gonna do a rundown. We can chat about it. Yeah, first off, 2 Acolyte tie-in novels, so that's kind of maybe the biggest news right off the top there. Wayseeker by Justina Ireland, which is, yeah, of course. Justina Ireland, the original author of Vernestra Row. So this is Vern 20 years before The Acolyte, and that comes out May 6, 2025. And then a young adult novel starring Padawans, Yord and Jeki, that comes out in July 2025. And so, yeah, that I think is the biggest news here. How are we doing, Ash?
I think we're good. Are we good?
I think we're good.
Yay! Good. I didn't miss you talking about Indara, did I?
No.
Yeah, we just started.
I love her.
Yeah, there we go.
I love her.
Actually, we haven't really gotten to Indara at all, so we're good. I just mentioned Vern. So we're good.
But Indara's in this book, so
Indara's in this book.
Too.
Yes. So yeah, when did I give myself a prompt? There we go. That's what I'm gonna do. Sorry, guys. We're just figuring everything out here on the fly. There we go. So this is, show this up now. That's I think the biggest news from my point of view, from a certain point of view. There were also news about. So I'm talking about the Yord and Jeki young adult novel. Also some guidebooks. Art of High Republic Volume 2. It's probably too small on the screen, but sequel to that one there. So Volume 2 by Kristen Baver, which with an intro by Rebecca Henderson. And then the Acolyte Visual Guide by Pablo Hidalgo. I don't think there were so this is the article on StarWars.com that kind of did a rundown. It didn't give release dates for those, but I'm guessing sometime in the next year or so. And then so just keep an eye out for that. And then comics, and go back to the actual publishing initiative. Some news about the Phase 3 Marvel run by Kevin Scott that continues in February 2025, and that is going to include Kelnaka. Now, on that, I do want to pause. Just a thought there. So initially, I had thought that the audio play that comes out in December. There you go. Yeah, Ash is giving her a thumbs down. Not a fan of Lorna D, I guess. I don't know. The audio play that comes out in December.
Oh, I'm not a fan of Kelnaka.
Not a fan of Kelnaka. Okay, well, we'll definitely get into that. There we go. But so just a thought in terms of the overall kind of structure of all this. So the audio play that comes out in December, we thought would be kind of the epilogue, the finale to the comic book run. Effectively, it's also by Kevin Scott. Features Lorna. Lorna is the title character, and then Keeve is in there, and some other characters from the comic book run. But then this announcement comes out in February, or for February 2025, that it's going to continue. So I'm thinking then the audio play is a bit more of an interlude, a bit more of a pause to focus on Lorna's story, and then this new comic book run that was announced. I guess I don't know how they'll number it. Maybe continue the numbering or add the numbering. We'll see. That likely has Keeve, I'm guessing, speculating here, dealing with whatever happened in the audio play, and then of course everything else happening in the galaxy as a whole. We know, of course, Trials of the Jedi comes out in spring, and and then of course that comic, possibly the conclusion to Keeve's story that we know is coming, that Kevin Scott plotted out, and really one of the linchpins of the origins of the High Republic at all, with the whole what do the Jedi fear coming in through in Keeve's story and being expressed in that. And so of course the 18th or 19th Master Who Leaves the Order, she gets a bust in the library and whatnot. So that there were some other covers, as I mentioned, and other things that, again, the Kelnaka one shot and different things that were announced before. Check out the StarWars.com article for more. I do want to ask though, the very kind of quickly, Ash, if you can get your thoughts on this. First of all, which of these announcements stuck out to you the most? What are you most excited by? And also kind of what do you find the significance of these Acolyte tie-ins? Yeah, maybe if you type it in the thing, we'll read it out. No, I'm just kidding. That's how it works.
Okay, so aside from the announcements today,
yeah, I meant the San Diego.
It would have to be. Can you hear me though?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's just kind of delayed. That's okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. Good. Wayseeker.
Yeah.
100%. You put Indara on the cover of a book, I'm gonna be snapping it up.
Right.
What?
Now, I do warn you, it says cover not final. So, this will be the cover we kind of remember though.
I know
part of it. Yeah.
But it means that she's probably in it.
Yeah, that seems like that's true.
Oh no, she is. I read the summary of the book. She's in it. She's kind of the linchpin for it.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah, and then what do you think? This is
how I win.
This is how you win, by saving what you love, namely Indara. And we'll get to her significance in the show. What do you think of the significance of these tie-ins? Because the thing I thought initially or immediately was, oh yeah, the Acolyte. And Joel, you mentioned this too, that it's getting kind of the Force Awakens level treatment. We haven't gotten
movie level treatment in general.
Yeah, movie level treatment. We haven't gotten tie-ins to this extent to something on screen since then. And this one, it just makes so much more sense because all these tie-ins would make sense for other things, for other shows, but we haven't gotten them for Mandalorian or for even Ahsoka or for Book of Boba Fett. We're getting them for this one because this is the most paper connected screen story we've ever gotten. It's the first time there's really more of a two-way street between paper and screen that we've ever gotten, especially this Green Mary Allen here, who shows up, of course, in High Republic. And then we're getting, I mean, this novel by Justina Ireland, who's on Team Luminous. I mean, I hope it really does bridge some things a little bit. Wayseeker, she becomes a Wayseeker, of course, at the end of phase 1. In phase 3, she's not so much, but still, that kind of is part of her, and it's clear from this. I'm guessing from this title that it's part of her, and so to bridge that gap. I almost wondering, kind of joked that all these announcements make for is this High Republic phase 4 in a way, not literally. I don't really mean that. Kind of just joking though. Yeah, does this kind of say, okay, there is this last little bit to these novels and coming out in this time again. Trials of the Jedi comes out in spring. This comes out in when did it say? It comes out in May. Then the Orden Jackie novel comes out in July. So, it's almost to say that this whole Acolyte era, and kind of what Kathy Kennedy was alluding to in that initial announcement for the show, feels like an epilogue. Maybe we'll get to that also in this episode, but it feels almost like an epilogue to the High Republic and this bridge, of course, to the Skywalker saga and Phantom Menace episode 1. Joel, I'll bring you in. What are your thoughts about all these announcements, and what stands out to you, and what's kind of maybe the larger scale significance?
Well, I mean, obviously, I gotta agree, Wayseeker, because, like you said, Matthew, it is bridging Vernestra's character in a way. I think I knew some people were like, with Vernestra, it's like, oh wow, he is nothing like me in the books. Being all Section 31 Jedi spy person.
Sure.
It's like here, it's like, okay, you're just in your island. She's still a Wayseeker. Now, Indara's here, like, hey, Council needs you for something. Can you come back and do that? And then we're going to see the book, probably her first true official mission as the Wayseeker. So I like that quite a bit. The Jackie and Yord stuff is kind of weirdly also a sign that they're probably not doing anything else with Jackie and Yord after their deaths. Because, like, okay, here's this book. They're dead. We're done. We're going to just tell their backstory now. R.I.P. Stab, stab, stab. So there's a little bit of that.
No, more like stab, 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 stab.
Yeah. I think significant is
too soon, Ash. Too soon.
I know.
Come on.
It's nice to see that after Acolyte's done, they're not it's not like getting abandoned or anything. Like here's some tie-in novel. Yeah, I think we might be a little jumping the gun in terms of like predicting the future of the show. But it's like hey, it's nice to see these things existing. And as you know, if you want to talk about it after my ramble, like they're saying it's set in the era of the High Republic. That key word, the era of the High Republic, is not over. Right. The initiative's coming to an end. And I'll just mention in terms of the Kevin Scott comic, yeah, that could be where Keith Trennis finally leaves the Order. Because, Matthew, you and I have sort of talked about, okay, Charles Soule is writing the last book that's kind of the cap off, but he's not. Kevin Scott has sort of shepherded Keith's story. And even though, for the most part, the authors have been pretty nice about sharing the characters together, obviously, Keith is very much Kevin's kind of baby. So it's like, okay, well, it could be in the final book, but this is also another chance to be like, maybe this is where it happens. So there is that. So yeah, that's kind of just my takeaways from these announcements and all that.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about who gets to shepherd what characters. They've also been very good in saying, hey, Kevin, you're the one who's came up with Kiev, basically, and has written her story. Hey, Justina, you've basically written Vern's story. Take it home, carry it on, as we see in this novel here. So yeah, it does represent, just kind of a great deal of respect and storytelling. I don't know what the word is, but just a sense of, well, and that's kind of a word that characterizes all of Project Luminous, generally speaking, or Team Luminous, generally speaking, just a lot of respect and care for each other to say, okay, are we doing justice to this character that's kind of part of you in a way? So appreciate that. Ash, do you have any further thoughts? Hopefully the internet works.
I mean, yeah, I agree that, like, it feels like this is kind of, like you said, an epilogue, but I don't want it to be.
Right.
As long as they keep putting out stories in the High Republic era, I will snap them up, and I will continue to do whatever it takes to support this initiative, because it means so much to me. It means so much to so many people that I love and care about, that I don't want to let go of it.
Yeah.
Anti-Star Wars moral lessons. Going the dark side.
That's true, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take
definitely.
It's a healthy attachment. I'll defend myself to the Order and the Council. I'm not attached to Indara. I just live in Delulu for her. She's still alive. That knife hit the fruit gushers that she was bringing to Torben. So how does May feel that she deprived Torben of his gutters?
There we go. Lots of things definitely get into in for the Acolyte. But yeah, definitely to keep on. Yeah, it's true. This is the first foray. You guys are both right. Into we can keep telling stories in this era. There's so much to tell. There's so much to tell, even between phases 2 and the 1 and 3,
years?
right?
Couple.
But I mean, that almost gets me to why I almost call it phase 4. And by epilogue, I don't necessarily mean they're going to stop telling stories. I mean, like Kathleen Kennedy said, it's the end of the High Republic era. There's between phases, the phase 1-3 story and phase 2, we know there's a 150-year gap. Okay, between the phase 1-3 stories and the Acolyte stories, there's a 100-year gap. I mean, the publishing initiative is more about the Nile and this contained story. It's true. But yeah, I feeling like it is putting a capstone on this. Not in terms of the actual they're going to stop telling stories, but they might for a while. It's kind of thinking off the top of my head here, but they definitely don't have to, is what you're saying. So yeah, when they keep releasing stories, they give us a oh gosh, what's his face, Porter Engle story set in between or somewhere there. Give us these folks, whoever, give us a Jedi Knight Sav Malagan story.
Yes.
On Hakodana. There's lots of room to play with. And so here they're starting to. Yeah, it's a good point. Starting to play with it. Do you guys have any last thoughts on the San Diego Comic-Con news announcement before we get to the other news and announcement?
I'm just really excited to have Indara back.
Yeah.
Everyone said after the first episode, they were like, no, she's dead. And then I won in episode 3 and I won in episode 7. So who actually won here? Me.
Well, she's still dead, just in the.
Is she? Because she's still alive to me.
Yes. Well, yeah, so is Yord. Yord's still alive to me. So
okay, that's fair.
I mean, all I wait for is the tales of Darth Nubs and Darth Plagueis during the High Republic.
There we go.
That's what the story needs to be next.
That
this
would be
little
something.
Guy. I would honestly, if he was the Sith Master, I would turn to the dark side just to work with this little guy.
Oh yeah,
he's so cute.
They definitely have cookies.
Nice.
They definitely have cookies. I mean, they're doing the Darth Jar Jar thing in the Lego, so you never know.
Yeah,
maybe that's preparing for us.
Misa going to hurt Yusa. Like, that line was banger.
There we go.
I think about it 4 times a day.
I believe you. All right, I think we can move along to also exciting news.
The greatest coincidence ever today.
Breaking news again.
Real.
Again. How did this happen? The Force is with us. Reign of the Empire. Breaking news. There we go. She's right there. Just today, I woke up this morning or whenever I woke up this afternoon, whenever, to Joel messaging me, IO9 Gizmodo announcing the Reign of the Empire trilogy, which, quoting their article, and examines the political struggles of the nascent rebellion. I'll bring this up here. We'll chart the rise of resistance. I'm just going to read through basically this whole article. Rise of the resistance against the imperial regime from the very first year after Revenge of the Sith, all the way throughout the 2 decades that saw the formation of the Rebel Alliance and the beginning of the Galactic Civil War. And the authors, and I'll bring up this cover. Ash, are you ready? Are you ready for this cover?
Yeah.
Bring it. Nice.
There she is. There she is.
There she is.
Front and center. So Alexander Freed's The Mask of Fear, that comes out in February 2025. Rebecca Rowanhorse, who of course wrote Resistance Reborn, that comes out in spring 2026. And then Fran Wild, who wrote No Contingency, the Mon Mothma story in the Return of the Jedi Fakbov, that comes out in 2027. And of course, each book will cover the Empire's 20-year history. I'll go through that. And then I'll just read through very quickly. They have the description. The IO9 Gizmodo article has the description for Mask of Fear. Their description: before the rebellion, the Empire reigned. In order to ensure the security and continuing stability, Joel, you should probably read this one. The Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society. I did my best. Joel, you could do a better job, but I did my best. Anyway, with one speech and thunderous applause, Chancellor Palpatine brought the era of the Republic crashing down. In its place rose the Galactic Empire. Across the galaxy, people rejoiced and celebrated the end to war and the promises of tomorrow. But that tomorrow was a lie. Instead, the galaxy became twisted by the cruelty and fear of the Emperor's rule. And during that first year of tyranny, Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera, and Bail Organa faced the encroaching darkness. One day, they will be 3 architects of the Rebel Alliance. The first, each must find purpose and direction in a changing galaxy, while harboring their own secrets, fears, and hopes for a future that may never come unless they act. I want a poster of that cover right now.
I want it. I need it.
I've been longing for political intrigue, and here we are, finally getting it by Alexander Freed, of course, the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, which I need to read. And
the goat writer of the Rogue One novel.
Rogue One novel edition. So yeah, Ash, go nuts. What are all your feels? What are all your thoughts? What are all your hopes?
Mon Mothma book. Finally, it's the Mon Mothma book. It's the Mon Mothma book. So Tom, who's the editor for like the Star Wars books, has also confirmed that Bail Organa is going to be in it, because how can Bail function without his queen? It's also illegal for them to be separated. It's actually a law on Alderaan. Trust me on this. Which means we have all 3 people there necessary for the polycule of Mon, Bail, and Brea to be confirmed. I am a Mon, Bail, Brea truther ever since the dinner party in Leia, Princess of Alderaan. Thank you, Claudia Gray. And also, I know in my heart that Perrin is probably going to be in this book, but at the same time, I think that it's going to be really interesting to explore him further as a character, because in learning more about him, by default, we're going to learn more about Mon as well, because they're married and they share things, and we'll see. Because I'm really hoping that what they do with his character is that they show how the Empire changed him fundamentally into a person that Mon can no longer stand to be around. Mm-hmm. And because I've always thought that, yeah, they were friends before they were married, and sure, they didn't want to marry each other, but they were like, you know, at least we're friends, at least we get along. And then you see them in Andor, and that is very much gone. So yeah, I want to watch her marriage fall apart, and subtly, in my own special way, offer myself to assist her with that. I just really like her. She's my favorite character in Star Wars.
Are you sure?
So I'm fairly certain. I think she's the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and I'm really hoping. I don't want to come across as begging, but I really hope that I get like an arc for this book
an
because
advanced review copy. Yeah.
because I'm working on the Mon Mothma project, and I kind of want to have all of the canon portion done to present next year at Celebration, either officially in a panel that is approved, or unofficially, everyone's just going to listen to me ranting like the crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep a microphone away from me, you know. So either officially or unofficially, I want to present the canon portion of it as up to date as possible.
Yeah.
And while it's already being worked on, the more that they add, the faster I have to work. Because I'm like, this book could completely decimate every single thing that I have, and I need to be completely prepared for that.
The curse of completionism of a canon junkie.
Yeah.
There
right?
we go.
Yeah. Like, the Legends portion, I haven't even touched yet, and I think a third of the way through the canon portion of everything. And it's so, there are things that, like, I will literally read an entire book, even if she's just mentioned once.
Right.
Because I need to know what people are saying about her. And I need to know whether or not they're my enemies. But yeah, so there's that. And I would like to be able to work on that properly. So if they want to, if they want somebody who's just gonna, because Alexander Freed has never let me down when it comes to Mon Mothma. So if they need like a good review right out of the gate, they can come to me.
You're willing to you're unabashed chill.
Yeah,
we know you are. That's good.
I will book a day. I will take a day off of work to binge read it and then review it.
Yeah.
There will be a video of just incoherent screams of me. Like it'll just be me on the floor screaming.
You know.
Yeah.
Be good content. It's like
exactly.
You
now know
no worse
kind
than those reaction videos. Yeah.
I bet you know how Christopher Kenshaw felt when writing Rise and Fall. Like, oh shoot, more canon material into my book about the Empire, and half of it's not even done yet. Gotta figure out a way to get the Thrawn stuff in there.
Yeah,
okay,
I just thought of that. Yeah, this sounds like something that would go into that book, but
yeah.
Hey,
maybe we'll get an updated version.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Joel, what are your thoughts on this trilogy and this novel?
I call this novel trilogy unofficial and/or tie-in material for next year.
Yeah.
Real.
That's kind of what it is. It's unofficial and/or tie-in material. It's not really tying into Andor, but it's also totally tying into Andor, probably. Also my second thought, reading the fact that Bale, Saw, and Mon are going to be the big three here. All I can say is, back in my day, it was Garm Bell Iblis who played the role of Mon Mothma disliker because he was all about Corellia. Why Corellia was awesome. Now Saw's taking Garm's role as the crazy one.
Anyone who is a Mon Mothma hater, I can't be like very, very close with. I love Saw though.
Yeah.
And I do think that I do think that they have like a weird kind of respect for each other, because I think they both realize that the rebellion needs the other, because they're essentially like two sides of the same coin. Like, you can't have the rebellion without the fighting that Saw does, and you can't have what comes after the rebellion without what Mon does.
Oh yeah,
so
I'm very excited.
They very much like need each other.
But I guess the question I'm kind of having here is, it's a trilogy with 3 authors. So does that mean, is it like a trilogy, like a single story? It's just like an anthology thing where it's like, okay, book 1's the Mon Mothma focused one, book 2 is going to be the Bale one, and then the final one's going to be a Saw book? I'm not quite 100% sure how that's going to work. But obviously, Alexander Free's last trilogy was him doing all 3 books. Alpha Squadron, go read it. Very good.
Go read it.
Oh yeah, very good. But no, I'm glad to have him back. This is right up his alley. He's very much an Andor aesthetic author, especially for this type of thing. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, kind of perfect time. Also perfect timing, because by the time book 2 or 3 comes out, Andor is probably done. So any sort of secrets they had to keep probably gone. So maybe Luthen shows up in book 2 or 3, depending on when they were allowed to get the info. So
Yeah.
yay for that. So, but yeah, it's awesome. I can't wait. This is hype.
Mon
Yeah.
Mothma book.
Yay!
Yeah, and Joe, it's a great point. That definitely tied to Andor, specifically in the themes, right? I mean,
And maybe
in characters and themes, but also, yeah, I mean, of course, Mon Mothma's in there, but Saw and Luthen seem to have a similar approach, right? That you have to sacrifice your own soul for the sake of the rebellion. You have to you basically do things that are actually wrong and evil in order to oppose this greater evil of the Empire. And of course, in Rebels, especially, we see Mon Mothma reject that premise. We see, throughout, we see her wrestle. I think in Andor, she's somewhat wrestling with it a little bit. At least she's saying, well, what she's wrestling in a different way, right? For her, it's the evil of staying on as a Republic senator or as an Imperial senator, as we see in the cover here. That evil versus the evil of the kind of atrocities that Saw Gerrera is willing to commit, the diametric opposite evil. Whereas, Mon is able to find this middle where, like Bail leaving the Senate. I guess Bail never leaves the Senate technically.
No, you never technically.
But Mon, of course, leaving the Senate and taking the leadership of a military command effectively. So incorporating a bit of Saw, but with an eye, like you guys were saying about with in Life Debt. I keep on bringing this back. I keep on coming back to this. I have in my mind Mark Thompson. To Mon to Leia, we're no longer a rebellion, we're forming a government. And always having that in view, whereas others just weren't able to. So to see a novel explore these dynamics and these tensions, there, an animated show can do it in great ways, and it did in great ways. Short stories can do it in great ways, and it did. But for a full trilogy of novels to really dive into what does it mean to be a rebel in this empire, really excited. Really fascinating intrigue.
Also,
again, political intrigue, political theory, and the ideas that are going to come out of this too. So,
I just want to say also that I'll be very interested because, like, I kind of joke of like, oh, where's Gold Gorm? But the funny thing is, contracted with Legend a little bit. Garm was also a senator. It's like these were just 3 senators of the Legends Rebel founders. Here we have Mon, Bail, and Saw. Mon and Bail are obviously, they are the upper class senators. I mean, Bail is married to the queen. But Saw Gerrera, he's always on the ground. He sleeps in the dirt in a tent. And also, maybe even to play up some of the racialism, he is also a person of color, played by a person of color actor. Well, I mean, I guess Bale's also.
So is Bale, but yeah.
I guess a little bit. Yes. But definitely they are the upper class senators compared to Saw, who's like on the ground. So like, I'd be curious to see like if they play with that tension. Like here, Mon and Bale, they're kind of living the nice life. Well, Saw's got to be on the ground every day. It's like someone could stab me in the back. Literally.
They have the privilege of making those calculations, whereas Saw doesn't feel like he does. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. And also, like, there's a price that comes with that privilege as well for both Bale and Mon, and I think especially Bale, because think about who he's raising. Think about who his daughter is. Like both the Mothma family and the Organa family live in a different kind of fear, and like, of course, later on, Mon has the unfortunate circumstance where now however she feels about him, she has to essentially throw her husband under the bus to save not only herself, but the rebellion and her daughter, and potentially all of her allies as well, including Leia, right? And like when all of this began, like, Padme was pregnant with Luke and Leia, but Lita is literally born the following year. So, like, the first year of the Empire, Mon is literally pregnant.
Yeah.
And that must have been even more terrifying, because now she has to not only worry about where she stands, but how she is going to make sure that her child is safe. And, you know, it's, I think for a lot of how she thinks, she has to kind of operate within the bounds of legality, rather than being like, what's moral isn't always the right thing to do. Sometimes you have to break the law in order to do the right thing, because they know, like, she knows that they can use that as ammunition against her. If she's caught breaking the law, which she is doing in Andor, it can literally destroy everything that she has worked for. It can get people killed. It could get her entire home planet destroyed. And that's not a light threat, because, you know, the Empire does it with Alderaan. No one ever built a weapon that wasn't used. They literally used the Death Star on Alderaan to basically be like, hey, Leia, because you didn't cooperate with us, because you're part of the like, you are a rebel, we're gonna kill everyone on your planet. And I can't remember exactly which source it is. I think it's no, I can't remember. But the second Death Star, there was a list of planets that they were going to use it on. 2 of those planets, Mon Cala, Chandrila.
Yeah.
So Admiral Akbar and Mon Mothma were literally fighting for the lives of their people at the Battle of Endor.
Right.
Everything that they did to protect the people that they loved. Which I think is just fundamentally the key point of Star Wars. So.
Not by killing what you hate, but saving what you love.
Exactly.
Do what you gotta do. It is an interesting, just a coincidence then, you know, that Charles Soule is revisiting Leia and the Alderaan fleet. You know, so that's that 2015 comic by Mark Waid that looks at, I mean, so the Death Star has just destroyed Alderaan. We always see, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, what's the relationship to Chandrila in this? What's the relationship to what's Saw's planet? I forget what it's called.
Onderon.
With Onderon with an O.
Onderon.
Yeah.
You know, of course, you know, we see already what's the relationship.
Alderaan.
Bail and Breya have a relationship to Alderaan. Leia does too, but we don't see it. We don't think of her as the princess, as basically the queen of Alderaan. And so to see, okay, what kind of for Mon, what kind of like you're saying, considerations she has to take into account, literally having the next daughter of Chandrila in her womb, and then how Leia, again, we're bringing that back in the Star Wars ongoing comic coming out in the next few months. Leia as, you know, not just the rebel leader, not just the person we see in these films, but also like the wider galaxy, but also everyone's from somewhere. And that's to really bring that out. That's something that I think tends to be lost a little bit in these wider stories, especially with Jedi. Of course, it's going to be, you know, that they're no longer from there; they're from the temple. But everyone's from somewhere, and be curious to see how, if they do lean into the Chandrila the way they're leaning into Leia with Alderaan. We need more stories about that. I think just not to say. I mean, we don't want to be parochial, right? We don't want to say I only care about me and mine, because that is the great evil, great threat of the galaxy, great threat of our society now. But that my concern for me and mine, it's a legitimate care that inspires me to care for everyone, because we're all in this together, to have that explored. So
well, I'm very excited Alexander Free will be tackling these topics, because these are delicate topics to tackle.
There, that's true.
There's also potential for Baby Jin to be there as well, because Saw.
That's awesome.
So we might get some Galen and Lyra content. Maybe a Orson Krennic mention. Most likely a Tarkin mention, I think.
No. We gotta see Masamita and Slymore. We gotta see them be big.
Oh my god, Perrin's girlfriend Slymore.
Perrin's girlfriend Slymore.
and his one-time scenes of Masamita.
Well, I mean, Masamita's in love with Palpatine. That's very clear. I mean, okay, but take a look at Slymore. And the only way that anyone would think that she is interesting is if they had a thing for her. I can say this, I think Slymore is absolutely gorgeous, also terrifying. And I think that she's very interesting. Do I think that she's fun? No. No. Perrin's like, she's fun. And it's just like, what is wrong with you?
Wait, wasn't he being sarcastic?
I don't know.
I don't know. Either, well.
He was being mean to Juan, so.
A hint of truth in the sarcasm.
Wow.
Greg Pak comic, by the way, speaking of, is it Greg Pak and everything around with Crimson Reign. Yeah, Slymore has a really interesting little moment in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Like she kind of trying to subvert Vader, she's trying to prop him up. So yeah, that's a good, yeah. So going back, all these other characters, all these prequel characters, that's another thing is there's no like prequel era then original trilogy era. It's just bridging the gap.
Yeah, Dark Times era.
It's the Dark Times era. And I mean, my big jam is what it means to be a Jedi. Like, I'd love to see a trilogy of Jedi stories in this, but this is just as great political stories. Before we move on, any last thoughts and feels and hopes and dreams with this this novel series?
Yeah, just in general. If the Acolyte sucks, why do Acolyte stands keep winning? If the prequels suck, why do prequel stands keep winning? And if you don't know who Mon Mothma is, I feel sorry for you.
And if you don't know who Mon Mothma is,
you are an uneducated voter, and you need to learn. And I am happy to teach you.
There we go. Read
just
this
listen
book.
To me, yeah.
Read the Mon Mothma project. Follow at Bejeweled Mothma.
Yes.
Look at the plugs again.
I'm basically a keeper of Mon Mothma lore.
Yes.
If it's Mon Mothma lore, I probably know it. If I don't, it's fake.
You're also a keeper of Mon Mothma love.
That is also true. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So go, Joe.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I've always wondered like the popularity of Mon Mothma for the year, because she's always been that character like who kind of like even not the diehard Star Wars fan kind of knew, like when Rogue One showed up, it's like, oh yeah, we know that's Mon Mothma, but like I don't know how many people even read the book, but like they just knew it's like, oh yeah, it's Mon Mothma. You recognize that shirt and that hair.
Yeah,
her name is never mentioned in Return of the Jedi.
I know, that's great. I know, it's totally, but yeah,
it's very much like everyone in the rebellion just knows who she is, so it would feel unnatural for her to be introduced by name.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's interesting because, again, like Star Wars has never been the most quote unquote feminist like story with like the Bechdel test or anything, but whenever people are like, oh yeah, like Star Wars has a lot of female characters, most of them are never named on screen, whatever graphic they choose to show. Because I'm like, Ula's never named on screen. Mon Mothma was not named on screen until, I don't think she was actually mentioned by name in Rogue One either.
Oh, I don't know.
The closest we get is that one officer of the rebellion who runs after her screaming senator. That is, I think, the closest we get. And I'm not, please don't get me started on that scene. Otherwise, I will talk about how I love the way that I think that Alexander Freed wrote Draven to be kind of in love with Mon. And if I ever meet him, I have questions for him to be like, hey, what the fuck does this line mean? And I've done that to Claudia Gray. I've done that to Claudia Gray. I was like, hey, Claudia, what does this line mean? And she's like, yeah, you are supposed to read it, that they would be in a relationship.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what characters that's about, but read Bloodline and you'll figure it out. Sure. But
Alexander, you've been warned.
Yeah, Alexander Freed, I'm 5 steps away from being in your walls. I just need to know where your walls are.
Just go to in Japan. It'll be fine.
Just in Japan, he shows up and I'm just like, hi.
Yeah. Be prepared. All right. I think time to move on because we have a whole other topic to do, and that
God.
topic is The Acolyte season 1.
Yay.
Look at that. Sorry, I'll just say Ash, say goodbye to this image for now.
No, goodbye, Mon. Mon, say bye to you.
Bye, Mon.
There you go. All right, Acolyte season 1 retrospective finally come to the main topic of tonight, and we're making good time. There we go. And the first thing we usually do, we've already kind of covered this when we get a guest on for the series, is being what is that guest's relationship to the High Republic. And I can't even say it with a straight face. You're literally wearing the shirt. You've already mentioned you don't want the Acolyte Times to be the epilogue, but I got more.
Books
I
in
got
the background, like some Star Trek.
There you
The
go.
High Republic shelf,
The
and then more High Republic. Where's my baby? Nubs.
But there's more. I got more.
There's more. Yeah.
I got 2 slideshows. First off, I got a slideshow of 2 slides, is what it is.
Okay,
First off, this is 3 of us from March from Toronto Comic Con. There's your partner Louie.
My partner in the middle. Yeah.
And yourself wearing a different franchise cosplay.
Yeah, it's Doctor Who.
Yes. And then I'm wearing my Jedi Temple thing. That is High Republic 101.
That was a High Republic 101. Yeah.
Yeah, High Republic 101.
That was the one we did together.
We're hopefully doing High Republic 201 at Can Expo. The application is in. So yeah, that's one illustration of Ash's relationship with the High Republic. Here's another. Just recently on your stories, reading Temptation of the Force. And there's your reaction to chapter 20.
So many of my friends were tweeting about chapter 20 of Temptation of the Force, and I was just like, it can't hurt that much. I read it and I was like, damn, thanks Tessa Grattan. Like chapter 20 of Temptation of the Force has got hands, yo.
So that is your relationship to the High Republic.
A lot of tears, but also a lot of love.
There you go.
It's brought some of my favorite people in the entire world to me. It has taken a lot of my money, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, and I gotta say, High Republic Twitter is the best part of Twitter.
Oh yeah,
it's one of the only good parts of Twitter left.
That's so true. I think it's mostly because like most High Republic fans read, and even those people that watched The Acolyte, a lot of them I've noticed are now reading the books. And it's so funny because I can see how they felt about The Acolyte, watching it and be like, oh yeah, like I like this character and this character. And I'm like already like, yeah, you're going to love this character in the book. You're going to love this character. You're going to love this character. And usually I pop off. If somebody is a Torben fan, they're going to be a Reith Silas fan. It's the same little guy in different fonts. They both just want to go home to the temple.
Go home and read. Yeah.
And read.
That's funny you say that, because like Torben's interesting. Reith is my guy, right? Reith is my number one. He's going the other direction. Yeah, I should give more thought to Torben then. In that case,
you should.
So that does lead to why we usually ask this. What we usually ask is, looking back on The Acolyte as a show, having been so thoroughly ensconced in the High Republic and thoroughly saturated with your brain in the High Republic, how did you feel it portrayed the era? How did you feel it fit with the era? Did it feel authentic to it?
I think it did. With that, I also really love Dooku Jedi Lost by Kevin Scott.
Yeah.
A special baby, and I feel as though the writing of it not only respected the High Republic, but I often have an issue with the way that certain texts, including this one, have been kind of, I feel, semi-disrespected in on-screen works, because there's the whole like tier list thing that we've talked about. Like you and I, we talked with Claudia about it on our other panel. Oh yeah, we did a Star Wars publishing panel as well, and I got to sit next to Claudia Gray and annoy her. And then she ripped my copy of Bloodline. It was very funny.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It's so cute. My copy of Bloodline has lore. And so like the publishing has always been lower on the tier than things that we see on screen, but I don't feel like that was necessarily the case here. And I know that some people complained about the way that it, like, changed canon and, like, messed things up, but I don't feel like it did. Because
Right.
who is going to bring cortosis into a Star Wars show? Leslie Headland, right?
Yeah.
Who is going to throw in all of these things that it's like, oh, that actually ties in really well with canon and also brings in Legends elements as well. So I'm like, Leslie Headland gets Star Wars. I fully, if she wants to do more, I'm going to be like, yes, just give it to me right now. But I've had my expectations built up for this show since last April. Even before that, actually, gonna be perfectly honest. But my expectations were really built up last year at Celebration when I got to go to the High Republic panel. And so I was like, oh, like, I really hope that this is good because I've invested like a year's worth of thought into this and like desire to see how it plays out and everything. And it was just like that panel was life-changing. I had difficulty kind of hearing for a little while after that. You could hear us clear across the convention center. It was a problem. There were people like, what is going on over there? And it's like, oh, that's the High Republic panel. It's the book nerds that are screaming their heads off. Well, I mean, we got to see I got to be in the same room as Leslie Headland and Rebecca Henderson. And that was just so special listening to them talk about the High Republic and the Acolyte, listening to them talk about Vernestra especially. I know that hits so close to so many of my friends who really relate to Vernestra and like have her as their favorite character. So, I don't feel let down. And like there were things that I didn't expect, and I like that. I like that I couldn't see where it was going. I like that I got to the last scene of the series and I was like, no, give me more. Give me more. Give me more. Right? Because I haven't really felt that way about a Star Wars show since Andor season 1. When I finished season 1, I was like, where's season 2? Tony, where's season 2? And that isn't to say that I didn't enjoy, yes, Renew the Acolyte. That isn't to say that I didn't enjoy other shows. Like, there were things that I was like, oh, I would have loved to see this, I would have loved to see this. And I feel that way about the Acolyte and Andor as well. But I left, like, I turned off my computer most satisfied with those 2 shows.
Nice.
Couldn't sleep afterwards, but hey.
So the show that has Mon Mothma in it and the High Republic show.
Yeah.
That works. That makes sense.
Mon Mothma is my favorite Star Wars character, and the High Republic is my favorite era.
Yeah. But that's good because it means there was a lot of stakes, right? And a lot of could have handled that not as respectfully.
Yeah.
And turns out the show did in such fantastic ways. So.
And I also posted like a thing on my TikTok. I'm not gonna like go too into it, but I feel like there was a key piece that I was thinking about, and then I just randomly thought of Dooku Jedi Lost and how like that works, and I was like, oh, I see how this plays into it, and it has to do with Lene Castana, who is now also in the Phase 3 High Republic comics.
Sort of, I think.
Kind of,
that's
complicated. It's a situation.
It's a situation.
But I feel like that just kind of further, like, it adds to the tapestry of canon rather than trying to make a new one off to the side and be like, this is my sandbox now. And it's like, okay, well, everyone's playing in this sandbox. You don't get a sandbox to yourself. And I think that's why I love the way that Star Wars has been handled in recent years, is that it's giving more voices to people that 10, 15 years ago probably wouldn't have had much of a voice in something as big as Star Wars.
Yeah, that's a great point, that the sandbox requiring representation. Yeah, you're right. Joel, you want to take away the discussion, go for it.
Right.
Let's look back on the Acolyte.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I wrote down everything, and now it's sort of like, I don't know where to begin, right? Acolyte, I loved it. Got to see so much. I guess we could maybe just start with the negative and get to the little positive if we have any.
Get the negative out of the way.
Yeah, like these are the kind of the big three critiques I've always heard. Could it have worked better with the movie? Yeah, probably, maybe.
Like the more legitimate storytelling questions, I guess.
Yeah, they're gonna work better as a binge. Probably. I think people are probably gonna enjoy it as a binge. Is episode 4 still the weakest episode? Yeah, I don't know if you rewatched episode 4, Matthew, or your thought about it, but yeah, probably. But at this point, it's like, I've gotten over it. I don't know. Ash, I'll throw this quick question to you. Do you think? What are your thoughts on how this works as a show or as a binge? Are you? I mean, you loved it either way, so it's like you enjoy the week to week momentum, but it's sort of like, I don't know. You think for those who maybe didn't work on the week to week, it'll work better the binge?
Yeah, so I watched it week to week the first time, and I've also binged it. So, like, there's a special way, like it's special either way to me, because the way that I've always found works for me with mysteries, because this is essentially a mystery, is that I like to be able to essentially binge it, because otherwise, like the week to week, it can be very, very stressful, and I felt very, very stressed, waiting for what was going to happen. And
I get that.
And so, like, for me, there are elements to both that I think are valid. If you are a person who prefers to binge a show, it'll probably work for you that way. But if you're okay literally holding on and being like, okay, I'm scared about what's going to happen next week, stick to the binge. Stick to the binge. If you are a normal person who's like, yeah, I'm not going to let this completely consume my personality, sure, week to week might work for you. But at the same time, I understand that when things are all dropped at once and you have the ability to binge, the way that people talk about it changes.
Oh, definitely.
Right? Because with the week to week, you can have those, and as much as I didn't like some of them, those discussions about like, okay, what does this mean? What does this specific episode mean for the wider story? And you can break it down and you can have those like discussions about actual episodes rather than the show as a whole. And for me, generally, I'll be like, okay, like, what does this mean? And it's less of a criticism because I'm like, I don't know what it means yet in the context of the show, like the show in its entirety, or for canon as a whole. But there are some people who will be like, this is a criticism, and then it's like, hey, this literally gets solved in the next episode, fixed, like, because it's something like a question wasn't answered, and it's like, that's not a flaw, that's how storytelling works. Just because you ask a question doesn't mean it's going to be answered immediately, right? And I see benefits to both, and I see drawbacks to both. Because again, you want to keep the discussions going, because each of these episodes was individually important on its own. And so while episode 4 might not have been my favorite, it also introduced like very important things, right? We got the cortosis helmet for the first time, really. A lot of people started speculating about who the stranger was, which we wouldn't have gotten if we just found out like 10 seconds later. We got to spend a little bit more time with characters that were just going to die. We also got to see a little bit more of the relationships that Osha has with specifically Sol and Yord, which I think are both very important because, she loses Yord, who was a friend of hers, presumably. And it goes back to Sol's actions. So she has already lost him, and neither of them realize it. But also, like, my big issue with that is Kalnaka wasn't killed on screen. Right? And, we saw all of the other Brendok Jedi get killed on screen, except for that one. And I think that one was probably the most impactful. Because it's what happened to Kalnaka that caused Indara's actions that did, as Leslie Headland confirmed, kill the entire coven.
Right.
Right? and I'm not blaming Kelnaka for being like mind controlled. I will joke about that and be like, he should have fortified his mind. But I genuinely like understand that, yeah, it took the entire coven to be able to mind control this Wookiee, right? And again, I don't think that they would have done it if it had been Indara that went down there at first, right? They needed it to be Kelnaka. Right. And so Indara unknowingly played into their hands, right? And of course, Indara did not intend to kill the entire coven, right? We know that of the Jedi, she was one of the ones who was like, hey, like we can't just take these kids. Also, the council said no. So. Yeah, right.
But they
and I think that even she like kind of gets it that like, oh, I was, joking around with him about him not having a Padawan and all of this stuff, and now suddenly he feels a connection with this child that he doesn't know. Right. And so, she was trying her best, I think. And so at the end of the day, like, I would have loved to see all 4 of the Jedi get killed on screen. It would have been painful. But I'm also curious to see how much, like, I want to see the fight between Chimera and Kelnaka. Because I feel like that fight would have been awesome. Like, he's fighting a freaking Wookiee.
Yeah.
That is not a fight that you go into thinking you're going to win. Even if you have a lightsaber, because, spoiler alert, Kelnaka also has one.
They didn't have. They ran out of budget.
Yeah. But also, like, I understand that, like, being in that costume, it would be very difficult to fight in.
Yeah.
Right.
You only had one fight per season. One Wookiee fight per season.
And it was so, I think it was really interesting. Like, May really went for the toughest nut first. Because Indara was a goddamn powerhouse. Like, shout out to Carrie Ann Moss and all of the training that she went through to make sure that, like, Indara popped off. Like, we stand. And I just think that I would like to see more of all of the characters. And Torben was told Torben was told that it was a Baja Blast. He did not know that it was poison. He thought it was a present from Space Taco Bell. Right. he was like, "Ooh, Master Indara went to Space Taco Bell." Yeah. Oh no,
that makes sense. But Matthew, I'll toss the question to you. Like, I don't know. I mean, we've gone over the whole should have been a movie. It's like the 8-part movie syndrome. But it's like at this point, it's sort of like, where do you stand, or it's like, or just over it. At this point, like me, not that's not invalid. I'm just sort of like, I enjoyed the ending.
Yeah, again, I think with episode 4, she made a great point that to have that time between episode 4 and 5, kind of those questions and what that gets introduced and to sit with it. I think I'll just disagree and say that it just wasn't worth it enough to not have at least episode 5 come immediately there, because it just raised more questions. But episode 3 having I'll take a month for episode 3. That one, just to make people sit with all the questions, all the uncertainty, all the, again, I keep bringing this up, all the confirmation biases. People think this is what this is about. I really then see episode 7 getting that a month later, as opposed to a few hours later. It would definitely again, having that time to look back and letting us sit with episode 3 before episode 7 confirms or denies whatever we thought happened, especially with Indara. Thinking about how, like we mentioned off the top here, that she's the one with the most head on her shoulders, had most on her shoulders. She's the one who actually does represent what Jedi of the High Republic would have been like, in the sense of, okay, let's actually be responsible here and make the responsible choices, and listen to the council that's going to make the responsible choices. Just a thought. I just realized this novel is going to take place 4 years before that.
I thought it would
Yeah.
take place 20 years before that.
20 years before.
20 years before The Acolyte, which is 4 years pre-Brendock.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what
you got to confirm that to me because I'm going to get confused.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. And
Baby
that's so it's
Corbin.
interesting. That's kind of in there. Yeah, so I think all at the end of the day, it works again because of the conversations the show brought up that are now permanently part of our reception of this show. I think about oh goodness, what I'm blanking on the Marvel Indigenous Arizona Oklahoma Echo, and I think about how that show deserves more attention than it got, in part because it was all in one drop and we didn't, I mean, maybe there are Marvel podcasts and in the Marvel world that are talking about this more, but it seems to have not gotten the eyeballs. And so if it had been drawn out more, and I think
apparently they dropped it because they had no faith in it, so it's like, okay, we want to just get rid, do it and move on.
And that's really disappointing because they should have had more faith in it. There are parts of that show, frankly, that I think hold up more tightly than The Acolyte. And that's apples and oranges. They're two very different shows, but in a way, I mean, that's an interesting comparison.
They still got 8 episodes, so in some ways, like they still do the 8 episodes.
But also, highlighting these young women of color who are kind of in the center of these things that are kind of bigger and more powerful than them and coming into their power. Of course, I think Echo, she goes in a different direction than Osha does, but
I'll ask this and kind of just before we move on to this in terms of critique. I wonder if this probably is not true because I don't know anything about streaming numbers because that's like a can of worms I don't want to get into. Sure. But it's like I do wonder if the week-to-week model is maybe, and I probably am wrong, but it's more for the fans to have that discussion, and then the general audience can kind of come in and win the binge because let's face it, the general audiences aren't really, they're not having discussions, or at least if they are, they're not doing it like we are. They're like
they're not taking the YouTube for it.
They're normal people. But they can do the binge because that's still the primary dominant model. So it's like, okay, we can 8 episodes of The Acolyte, sure. Boom, watch. Oh, that was good. Done.
That's why they're only half an hour, maybe.
Who the heck is this helmeted man or person? But that's kind of my thought. But I guess we can move on.
Just jump in there. Actually gets to your point about people not being able to sit with questions. And I guess we're as the kind of the more I guess committed. I don't want to gatekeep, but we want to spend more time on this. That we are maybe better at sitting with questions. Maybe some people are worse at sitting with questions. Or it's a good point, Joel. The general audience, they aren't as invested in these questions, so they're less willing to sit with them, which is fair. It's just how they're. But,
I mean, I could be wrong as to why. I mean, I'm just making a guess. But let's get. We've talked about Indara, and we'll probably talk about Indara more. But actually, you know what? Let's switch it up. Since Indara is the most responsible Jedi, let's talk about probably who was the most irresponsible Jedi. Master Soul.
Okay, good. We agreed.
My heart. Yeah.
I do love him. I have respect for my friends who are in the Soul Patrol. I think that they deserve love and happiness. And I kind of felt bad for them after episode 7, even though I was like, wow, look at that, I was vindicated.
I felt that after episode 8. To kind of quote a meme, but change it so I don't swear too much. You know that meme of I'm not the dad, I'm the dad, not the stepdad, I'm the dad who stepped up. I saw a meme with Soul that says, I'm not the stepdad that stepped up, I'm the dad that effed up. I'm the dad who effed up. Yep. But God, I love Soul because he is, I kind of put in the notes, he is quote unquote the dark side, and I say that with big quotations marks. Qui-Gon, because you think he's kind of a bit of a maverick, doesn't always go with the council, but you can tell
the shadow of Qui-Gon.
Got a Qui-Gon, he's got a good heart. And you realize, oh no, Qui-Gon had a much better head on his shoulders, and at least he told the council every time we're gonna do something crazy.
Yeah.
Like at least he told them, like, oh yeah, guys, I'm gonna do something you don't like, but yeah, gonna do it. Bye. And council like, but they still tell him.
Then Soul's like, oops, I made a mess, and Indara's like, I need to clean this up.
Yeah.
And
you
also,
didn't even think about me.
And also, you know, Soul's interesting because I think Soul, in a lot of ways, kind of really validates the whole Jedi should have no attachments rule.
Yeah.
Like, look what happened, which is always kind of interesting in Star Wars because Star Wars is kind of weirdly contradictory in that, and kind of like, well, worked for Vader and Luke, but didn't work for Anakin and didn't work for Soul because that just caused problems.
Yeah.
And oh boy, did it cause problems, and especially, and of course, self-righteousness gone awry. But yeah, Ash, I'll give it to you. Talk about Soul. Soul, you have vindicated, but also we love Soul. Our troubled
we do
Jedi
love
Master.
Soul. Again, like I don't feel like all of the problems in this show are specifically his fault. I think that it was a mix of things. And with that, like, but again, he was the most irresponsible. And Dara was like, stop my Padawan who has lost his adorable little mind. And Soul's like, you know what we should do? It's like they broke the controls for the elevator. He's like, hey, you know what we should do? We should scale this wall. Like,
he's done it before.
Like, and of course, for Torben, he's going to listen to what Soul tells him to do. Because he's like, hey, yeah, you're also older than me, and you are of a higher rank than I am. So I'm going to listen to you because I trust that you're going to have a head on your shoulders, right? And even still, like before that, when Indara was like, yeah, my Padawan is like, he doesn't really care about a virgins.
Or doesn't know
maybe he would care about convergence. But
speaking of Jedi and attachments, not attachments.
Right. And he's and Soul literally like mistakes his own, like how he is feeling for what Torben is feeling. And Indara calls him on that. And she's right to do that. And so, you know, and again, like I feel like the two of them had a good relationship, but there were things that because he didn't bring to her attention, she was unable to help him work through. And I think it is very similar to the way that, like, I'm not going to say that like Soul fell or anything, because he didn't really fall to the dark side. He just effed up. But the way that some people will blame Obi-Wan for Anakin's fall, because he just didn't swoop in and fix all of Anakin's problems. He wanted Anakin to communicate with him. And yeah, like Obi-Wan made mistakes, right? In Voyage of Temptation, he shuts Anakin down when Anakin tries to ask about Satine, which definitely didn't inspire Anakin's confidence and being like, oh, I can talk to my master about having these feelings and experiencing this with, you know, someone that I was meant to protect, right? Someone that I love. And so that's not me saying that, like, you know, we shouldn't be like, oh, these are contributing factors, but it's not another person, like your actions are not another person's fault, right? Especially in this situation. And I know some people will be like, oh, well, you just said that, you know, Torben listened to Soul, and that it doesn't absolve Torben. He also should have known better, right? But again, it's slightly more excusable because he was a kid and Soul was in a position of authority. Yeah. You know, if you're in a grocery store with your parent and they say it's okay to steal this and you steal it, you still stole it. But your parent definitely like was not instilling the correct model of behavior into you. They were not setting a good example, right? And I don't think that little Torben's face needed to be mutilated. My poor little baby.
I mean, when you go up against the Wookiee.
It wasn't like the thing is, it wasn't either of their faults.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was tragic.
Matthew, I'll toss this question to you, and then maybe you can with a focus on how Soul, in a weird way, is kind of vindicating why the Jedi have this no attachment rule. It just causes problems. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I have thought about this, and I'm 3/4 of the way into what book is this called? Temptation of the Force. I'm like gotta bring that. I'm just this is just so
go
hilarious.
back to my Instagram story.
This is vintage Ash. This is how you are.
That was me in my Starlight Beacon cleanup crew shirt.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not, so I haven't finished it, so I don't know what the fallout between Alzar and Avar is in that yet. But
yeah, I'm scared.
Yeah, I'm a little. What are you doing, guys? What's happening here? So I think the issue though isn't attachment. It's it's funny. We see Soul. Just when is it? I forget when the story, but I guess after Jordan, Jackie, and everyone dies, and he's back up in the ship, and his eyes are just he's so angsty, and he pounds the console, and then he has this moment of probably reciting the mantra, "One with the Force with me." You see that transformation. He's able to control his emotions. That's the dark side of Qui-Gon thing. We think he's the most serene, he's the most peaceable, but he's actually the most emotionally driven, right? Kind of the flighty emotional thing, right? We know people probably parts of our own lives where we make these decisions based not on what's reasonable, but what we're so driven by, kind of in the emotionally flooded, and he lives there, and that's the tragedy with him, is he just like you're saying with Torben, and then with Osha, and even Osha again going back and involving himself in her story. She then of course falls to the dark side, because that brings up all these memories and brings up the reality of it, of what happens. And so it was is it an example of why the no attachment rule should be a thing? It's why attachments are risky, and why an order, an institution that's spread with thousands and thousands of members spread across the galaxy probably wants to hedge. With all the and that brilliant dialogue between Vern and Senator Raincourt. They want to hedge their bets. They want to hedge not to hedge their bets, hedge the probabilities, saying in all likelihood this attachment is going to lead you to make choices that go against the greater good of the galaxy. I do think with Anakin and Padme, we have Anakin's self-justification on the barge there in Attack of the Clones, saying Jedi encouraged to love, and there's resonances there with Avar and Elzar, of course. It's tricky. It's just how the issue isn't, again, so much with the attachments themselves. It's how we let the emotional aspect of those attachments lead us into ways that are effectively selfish and possessive. And so that is more what I'd say he's more than a kind of a general rule comment. I think it's more what Soul exemplifies, is that he let his emotionalism take him down this path. Just a thought about Torben. I don't know. I wonder how guilty Torben is at all. I mean, he's another example of how his emotionalism leads him down this path, that he's susceptible to Mother Anastasia, and whatnot. He trusts Soul, and because Soul gave him what he wanted, and Mother Anastasia might give him what he wants, and but I don't know. It's tricky because why? Here's the interesting thing. We have Torben at the beginning in episode 2. He's taking the Barash vow. He's clearly spend his life facing the fact that what they did was wrong, and is so willing to take the poison. It's actually poison. It's not Baja Blast.
Okay, listen. It should have been. He missed out on his fruit gushers.
Yeah, fair. Anyway, he's so willing to take it. We thought what we were doing was right, but clearly there's a sense, at least, of, oh, if the truth of this gets out, it's gonna be bad. Soul is fine with the truth getting out. We did the right thing. You know, this is spooky dark side magic. We got to stop it.
Save the children.
Save the children. And he takes that to his grave. And it's this odd contrast because we know he's wrestling. We know he doesn't fully believe that. Here's an interesting way of putting it. He never gives in to the truth. He always holds on to the lie. And that's the struggle, because to hold on to the lie is so stressful and so angst-ridden.
And he's been doing it for decades.
And he's doing it for decades.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, denialism is never worth it. You know, I keep bringing up the parallel with the residential schools. He's a great example of denialism.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, yeah, we think it was right. And now residential school denialism now is a bit more, I don't want to say subtle, but it's still pretty darn obvious. But trying to mitigate, they had good intentions then, or whatever. Whereas the truth is it's simpler and more freeing to say, no, that was evil. Let's seek ways to be better.
Yeah.
And so, and Vern's kind of interesting with that too. You guys heard a bit, but Soul. Think about this. Soul is just, for the things I care about in the real world perils I tend to care about. Yeah, he was definitely the more interesting character.
Yeah.
And I'll think about that, Joel. I'll think about with the attachment rule.
I got a whole episode discussion about this that I want to do one day.
Because the idea of in the real world about celibacy is not so much that you're unavailable; it's that you're available to a wider group of people.
Yeah.
And so, and to a wider community, and so, I mean, maybe real world celibacy does have ways of talking about attachments and emotions and connections that are probably healthier, at least the ones I know of. Not always. Residential schools, for example. But then what we see Soul doing. So
well, to kind of transition to the next character, you guys brought it up. You can't blame everything on Soul. You can't blame Anakin 100% on Obi-Wan. Can we not 100% blame what happened to Osha on Soul at some point? And maybe this is more of a season 2 speculation, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But at the end, and this is kind of the whole thing, a character who had no choice made a choice.
Yeah.
He chose to train under Chimere. So, we could definitely say Soul was a part of that choice. But at the end of the day, Osha has now made her choice to, be an acolyte, dark side person, Sith, I guess. And I guess I'll say May made the choice as well to go along with having her mind erased. I was pretty willing. Kind of definitely a little bit about, oh no, but it's like, oh well, we'll do it, and they definitely made a choice at the end. But Ash, I'll just toss it to you. Thoughts on May and Osha, and how our twins have switched by the end, and just the whole arc of their story in this show, that they are the crux of it all.
So essentially, I always saw them as like yin and yang. So like you have the light and the darkness, and then you have the darkness and the light. And given, like, I always had this theory before episode 8, because of the, always one but born is two. I give you and you give me, like, because of that, I was like, they are one person. They are not like technically twins, right? They are one person. And so, when we found out that, that's the case, it definitely like made me lean more into this. And so as May sort of moves towards the light, in order for balance to be restored within the like within them, OSHA has to move towards the dark, right? They can't both be good. They can't both be bad. They have to be like on essentially opposite sides while still maintaining, you know, because there is still good in OSHA. There is still, you know, I don't really want to say bad, but there's still like darkness within May, right? And I think that that's going to come in play if we get a season 2. Renew the Acolyte. Renew the Acolyte. And so it's just one of those things that it's kind of unavoidable. It's a canon event. We can't interfere, right? If one of them is going to be on the light side, the other is going to be like on the dark side. And I do think that it does also show that the force, balance in the force, and the dark side and the light side are always in flux. Right?
Because that's get really big in a couple decades because Galaxy's about to go.
Yeah. And a lot of big players are going to either be born or they're just like little toddlers right now. Because Palpatine and Dooku, literally, I would say 2 of the most important players in the downfall of the Republic. Because you have the leader of the Republic, you have the leader of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and also
the Sith.
Dooku's death directly feeds into Anakin turning to the dark, right? Because the Clone Wars were not going to end until Anakin was ready to turn, and that was a whole thing. Like it was going to go on for as long as Palpatine needed it to, because he was playing both sides. And I don't really Empire for more. I don't necessarily feel bad for Dooku, but I feel as though he realized in the end, like, oh shit, I effed up. You know,
he's less important than he thought he was.
Right, because he probably thought like, oh, I'm gonna be ruling the galaxy with him, you know, like master and apprentice. That wasn't how it was gonna work. So
that's an interesting thought. Just thinking about Osha's story. So you talk about the light being in Osha still, and the way the season ends, you know, it's depicted as in the way that it's kind of built up in that Osha turning to Chimera, turning to the Stranger, turning to the Sith. It's portrayed as an act of self-liberation, an act of finding herself. And I do really appreciate, and I think I mentioned this last week, that's why that Plagueis cameo is in there, right? It's to say, yes, there is a good motivation that she has, and Chimera is picking on that and picking up on that and pulling that, using an attachment to tug on that. I do appreciate how the show plays with the ideas of light and dark, but still says with Star Wars being thoroughly Star Wars, actually ultimately you want balance. You want now, of course, I'll still define balance as you want compassion and the greater good and genuine love and care for others and selflessness and sacrifice, but the desire for that, not an imposed order that requires it, but a desire for kindness and sacrifice to move the galaxy forward. And and so it's framed the way it's filmed, the way it's shot. The end, yes, Osha. It's like, oh yeah, I'm finding myself, but really, are you really going to be able to find yourself, or is Chimera just going to snap you down?
And like with the whole self-liberation thing, that's straight out of the Sith code. You know, and like, you know, with my perspective of balance is that the dark side exists, but the Sith don't actually like use the Force in the way that the Jedi do. They dominate the Force. Right. You know what I mean?
Like what the Lucino book said. So
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you. Actually, what did you also think of Papa Plagueis' cameo? Since we're here, of our friendly Mew.
I didn't think it was him at first. I was like, okay. I was like, it might be. I was like, it might be. I don't see any reason why it couldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I feel like we're all getting way too excited about this. I think we need to chillax a little bit, but
Yeah.
And then when I found out, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Because I'm like, my roommate, who isn't really big into Star Wars, like The Acolyte is the first show that he's like properly sat down and watched with me week to week, and we had some really great conversations. There were things that like I would react to, and he'd be like, oh, I'm guessing that that's important, and I would explain to him, be like, yeah, so this is a reference to this, and he's like, oh, cool, right. But like if I hadn't been there, he wouldn't have had that question, and he would have been like absolutely fine. He wouldn't have to, be overly concerned with that. And again, like I was doing it in a way that wouldn't spoil it. So, and he had a really great time. And he asked me at one point, he was just like, hey, so, like Chimera doesn't specifically say that he's a Sith. He says, a Jedi like you might call me a Sith. Right, which is, I think, very specific wording. And so I was like, I'm pretty sure that the current Sith Master is Darth Plagueis, or it would be Plagueis' master. I'm like, I can't remember how old he is. I don't know if he has a canonical age, right? Like, and to me, it's very interesting where we have like, legends where things are like they have their dates, and then in canon the dates can slightly shift a little bit. So yeah, some characters have a death date in Legends, and they don't have a death date in canon. And so I was like, I can't remember exactly how old Plagueis is, but it could be him, right? And so seeing him, I was like, and I realized that it was him. I confirmed it to my roommate. I was like, yeah. So when Luai, my partner, said, oh my god, I think that's Plagueis, and I said, maybe not, right? I was like, it was confirmed to be Plagueis. And he thought that was really interesting. He was like, wow, it feels so much closer to like the little bit of Star Wars that I do know about. Right? He's like, because Plagueis is Palpatine's master, and that means that Palpatine is coming up very close in the timeline. And I was like, yeah, it's not actually that long until he's born, because I remember Dooku's birth date in canon is like 102 BBY, and I know that Palpatine's slightly younger than him, right? And so I was explaining this to my roommate, and he was like, we are really close to the prequels. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, and I see, like, he was able to see a little bit of how like elements of this tie into the prequels, right? Because he was like, oh, I understand, like, there are senators that aren't really big fans of the Jedi, which is going to, there's going to be an effect. And I was like, yeah, there were a couple in the books as well, but mostly they were like, hey, we shouldn't rely on the Jedi to fight for us, which is kind of based. But at the same time, like,
I kind of get his point, but
yeah, I kind of get his point, because like you need to make sure that you have your own army and not be relying on a religious order of monks to do your dirty work for you, especially when the big bads in this war type thing, their little pets cause those religious monks to be really vulnerable and die. Like, so I think that, as someone who, most of my roommate's Star Wars knowledge comes from me.
Sure.
And sometimes I'll say the most ridiculous thing, and he'll be like, I'm not sure if you made that up or if that's actually real. And then I go and find the source, and he's like, oh my god, that's real. And I'm like, yeah.
And I'm one of the biggest connections. And that's a very prequel point, is that things he's latched onto. The opera scene, which is one of the great moments in Star Wars. Another great
Tragedy
thing
of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
That one. the opera, the going back to May and Osha, you know, one of the things I was thinking about as we're chatting, that and talking about, you know, what you were saying about how they have to be, they're the same person. One has to be, if one moves to the light, the other has to move to the dark. It does tell me that there is some dark thing going on here, some untoward thing with Mother Anastasia creating them, the splitting the personality or whatnot.
Yeah.
If there is a character that by definition has to go to the dark, that it creates this necessity for it, it empowers the dark side. And so, you know, yeah, no soul shouldn't have gone stabby, but
Yeah.
you know, I think there is something to be said for, and that's the thing going back to episode 3 is why is this coming illegal? Why why is there, you know, again, what's so dangerous and problematic about them? Why is Mother Coral so quick to violence too? Yeah, it again, things that will hopefully be revealed in season 2, which it will be renewed. Come on. But also things that brought up in this one, right? That she does end up going to the dark side. You know, there is, and yeah, so it's partly Soul's fault, primarily Soul's fault for being so emotion driven. If he hadn't gotten involved, you know, Torben takes the speeder, and of course, like you said, Ash, he just said, "Hey, let's go climb up the thing." If they had listened to the council, none of this would have happened. Who knows how that would have weakened the whole Sith plan overall? They would have found another way. But you know, Soul definitely playing into the dark side. Mother Anastasia almost willfully playing into the dark side. Maybe not willfully. We don't know. But yeah, it's tricky because again, that's the beautiful thing about episode 3. She's portrayed as so kind and loving, and yet she also may have done this thing that wasn't that threw some spice into the soup of the galaxy and some poison in there too. So
I mean,
again, things that I hope they explore, but
I mean, you got to give it to Mother Anastasia a little bit that. Yeah. What's interesting about her and the witches is that they tapped the dark side to make a person, but at the end of the day, Mother Anastasia saw May and Osha like those are her kids. Those are her kids. Meanwhile, if Plagueis saw these kids, he'd be like, "Into the test tube you go. Let's get out the syringes. Whatever it's to do. You are an it. You are test subject number 2185."
Right. Well, like Chimera, what was its name? But Jackie. Whereas, I mean, that's the thing is there's another story point that or reminder. Chimera doesn't see Osha as a person.
Yeah.
For Chimera, Osha is still an it because everyone else is an it.
Yeah.
So. Has he actually called Chimera an it, or the
Chimera says, "Jackie, what was its name?"
Yeah.
Okay, but you see, definitely see Jackie as it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
maybe just Jedi or it, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
Maybe he just racist towards aliens and he's a human supremacist.
Could be. But at the same time, like, you know, taking into account that Plagueis is immune, that kind of works. But at the same time, you know, there were
gotta get the power somewhere.
There were some aliens who were very sympathetic to the Empire later in years. What was that one's name from the Obi-Wan Kenobi? Well, I mean, Masameda, Slime Lord, definitely up there. But
that guy, I remember the walrus dude.
Freck? Was it Freck? I think it was Freck. Right? And, you know, so very much playing into helping the powers that see him as lesser, right? Because a lot of the Empire was based on human supremacy, and part of that went into how, like, a lot of planets in the Confederacy were, like, very heavily populated by aliens and non-humans. So, you know, it's another whole thing that I think is really interesting when it's laid out, because it feels very much like, oh, you know, we're so into like all of this like human purity, but at the same time, if you side with us, we're not going to treat you quite as well, but we're going to use you for our own goals.
Yeah.
Right.
Similar comment here. Alex has a great comment here. You know, what would have happened I mean, it's similar in terms of the kind of the impact of these kids. What would have happened if they completed the ascension ceremony here? What would the implications be? We don't know why the tunes were created. Someone did that deliberately. We don't know why. Yeah, that's just it. And hopefully, maybe more of a complicated, morally complicated reason.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe she just wanted kids, or wanted. Well, I mean, she had a kid. Maybe, who knows who the story is about that. But maybe the force is affecting Soul. There's another thing. Just because he's so emotional, he's vulnerable to the dark side in that way.
Maybe, but Osha and May, they have switched. Like I always predicted. I feel like I've been predicting that since I knew they were twins, or at least since episode 2, when we first saw old Chimere. And oh boy, speaking of season 2 speculation, but also some interesting stuff. Chimere, and he's terrified of his mother Vern coming and giving.
Oh, he's so scared. The tone.
Yeah.
The tone with which he says, "You're alive."
The way that he puts on his helmet, it's like, oh my god, my mom's here. She can't see me on a party.
His move. He has mastered the art of moving so slowly that he is invisible to the Mary Allen eye. The Mister can still see him.
Yeah.
But
I think that's interesting. Will we get answers in Wayseeker?
Maybe, yeah. It's possible.
Maybe, I don't know. Well, that's speculation for another. But yeah, I'll kind of mush them together. Chimere and Vern, I think are. I mean, they are very interesting. Chimere was always fascinating in terms of like I called it that he was just more from the trailer, but I also knew because of just the way he acted, or at least the he acted in the bar. Like, well, this guy's too silly. This guy's gotta be more. And I'll be interested to kind of see, kind of his whole shtick in terms of like what he really wants in terms of being a Sith, and maybe why he's kind of flailing. Because I mean, Sith do want all that power and the freedom to use their powers what they want. By the way, this whole series, and someone pointed this out, and you were talking about Deadpool a little bit, very X-Men. Just the way people are talking about like our powers, like. We're being oppressed for our powers. We are the future Charles, not them. It's just Lord Magneto. But no, I mean, it's kind of got that X-Men-y vibe a little bit. In terms of like the way they talk about like the powers of the Force and how we use them, and
and even with Vern in Raincourt and the wider society starting to be more skeptical.
Yeah, these powered peoples. But also I just thought he was interesting because again of he just wanted to be his freedom, but also like you call yourself a Sith, but you're blowing it. I mean, I guess Siths have duped their own grand plans for their own selfish devices eventually. I mean, Plagueis did that. By the end, he was so worked up on the whole immortality thing. Palpatine was like, "Dude, we gotta conquer the galaxy here. We can build an empire. We can do that later." But I thought that was interesting. I also kind of feel like I kind of genuinely think he might have legit feeling for Osha, and maybe Quasi May. Like I know, like I think he will be a Darksider who's still a Darksider, and it's gonna be a relationship that's toxic as heck. But I think there's definitely something genuine. It's scary, but it's also really interesting. And then as for Vern, of course, we see Vern. He was definitely kind of a surprise for a lot of people. Obviously, that's why I'm excited for this book because, again, I knew some folks were like, "Really? That's what Vern's like now? Okay." It's kind of that Luke Skywalker Last Jedi thing where it's like, "Oh, didn't see that coming." Like kind of a bit of whiplash. Although, and again, they both have the excuse of a couple decades have passed. People don't always stay the same. And Vern case, she was a teenager. Now she's gone corporate. She's no longer the free spirit. She's gone corporate.
She no longer has the mullet.
No.
The thin green line. She's defending the thin green line.
Thin green line.
The thin gold line.
With her thin purple blade.
Yeah, that.
But
Slash
it's interesting, you know, and she covers this up and takes it all the way to the top. In fact, I actually have here, if I can find it while I keep talking, this, like, now that Yoda knows, Yoda makes a lot more sense in Phantom Menace. I'll try to cover these square words. It's like, here's Qui-Gon showing, you know, here's Anakin, this Virgins of the Force kid. Sorry, you can't see it. And then look, here's Yoda is like remembering what happened last time was.
Oh yeah.
Like, now Yoda knows. But no, I thought both characters were really interesting, and I think their dynamics going to be really interesting too. But actually, I'll talk to this one to you again. Verdun, Chimere, talk about both. Talk about more than whichever one you want. But yeah,
it's like, for me, Vernestra's an even more interesting character, and I'm more curious to see how she comes into play in the rest of Phase 3, especially now because of the Acolyte, because I'm like, there's probably going to be something that happens that causes a lot of these things to happen. And again, like when Wayseeker comes out, that's probably going to answer more questions as well. But I did also see something else, like, on the internet that was just like, Vernestra having Chimere turn to the dark side and all of that. And then Yoda going through it decades later with Dooku, and Yoda's like, oh, so this is how it feels. This is how it feels. Vernestra's up there in Force Heaven, like,
like a bird.
Very good.
Okay, yeah. So I just think that it's going to be really interesting to watch how Vernestra's character changes and because like Jedi Masters kind of like have to like choose their Padawans, but I also very much headcanon it as being like, hey, the Padawan also needs to agree to be taught by the Master. Similar to like the cat distribution system, like you get a cat, but the cat also needs to accept you.
Right.
And so, like, what was it about Chimere that caused Vernestra to want to teach him? Right? What did she see in him? And all of these other things, because I think they're so fundamentally different as people that I don't currently understand why she would choose him as her Padawan. And so, like, you know, because it's also very clear that she's still mourning the loss of baby Imri, because who wouldn't be? Because yeah, he's definitely dead at this point in time. And her ship is literally named the Kantaros. Like, so she still holds on to that, but it doesn't feel like an unhealthy attachment the way that, say, Soul has with Osha. It's very much a like, hey, you know, I taught you. In a lot of ways, we grew together, but I accept that I'm going to outlive you, and she's going to need to accept that. And you know, we have that scare at the end of Phase 1 where we think that Imri's gone, and then the short story in Tales of Light and Life that starts with Vernestra, where's Imri? Those 3 words will continue to haunt my nightmares. And so, like, she knows what it's like to lose a Padawan, and I think that there was betrayal when she found out that Chimere was still alive, because I do think that no matter what happened, she would have mourned losing him in one way or another.
I agree.
Was his scar from her light whip? I don't know.
One thing you brought up in terms of like the cat distribution system of Padawans, which by the way, that's adorable because my cat is behind my computer and boy, did she pick me. But I almost wonder in a weird way, but like in the twisted dark side way, if that almost has to apply with Sith Masters and apprentices as well. Where I mean, like, you know, I think, you know, you can argue Palpatine never found his Sith apprentice, true Sith apprentice, because he never wanted to teach anybody. He was like, no, you're just kind of here to be my tool. I want to live forever. I think Plagueis is a bit more, I'm going to one day pass on my, you know, you're going to one day surpass me. But I do think it's like, you got to find the right fit. And I wonder if, like, again, Chimere's like, things like, hey, you could be my Padawan. Like kind of at first, like, yeah. Then they realize, oh, this Plagueis guy, he's not the right fit for me. And then Plagueis goes and probably dozens of apprentices and kills them off until eventually he finds Palpatine. He's like, finally, someone who can truly we could do evil things together. And then Palpatine then wins out because he kills him. But it's like
thing, yeah.
But I do wonder if that's almost kind of like we're going to see like the evil side of that as well. But Matthew, Chimera, Vern, anything?
Yeah. So, and just thinking of the Vern and Chimera dynamic, this show really plays a lot with themes of belonging and independence, and how ideally, the way it's supposed to be, with Imri, for example, you have a good attachment to your master, who fosters a sense of independence, teaches you how to step out into the wider galaxy. And, in Defy the Storm, we see Imri is, I'm going to stay on the side of the occlusion zone. I'm already doing a lot of good here. And Vern's okay. Now maybe something bad happens with that. And it doesn't turn out. And so that then challenges and threatens the sense of, wanting to support and foster the independence of a Padawan. I do think, there. I do think, especially with May and Osha, with Osha especially, she's always promised belonging through independence, or independence through belonging. Yeah, she's promised independence through belonging specifically. Join the Jedi to be free of your coven and your sister. Join the Sith to be free of what happened. That your kind of mediocrity as a mechanic or whatever. Crash out and fail to be free of being a Jedi. I wonder if Chimera, if Vern is trying to overcome, what I'm trying to say. I wonder if Chimera at a younger age, he does more what May ends up doing and saying, she's promised belonging through an appeal to independence, right? So let me recap. Osha's promised what am I trying to say? Yeah, she's promised independence through an appeal to belong to something outside. May is promised independence through becoming the leader of the coven, through becoming, again, ultimately, at least for a moment, for a hot sec, being part of what Chimera is up to, then part of what the Jedi are up to, but then having her mind wiped and all that. I wonder if Chimera was like that too, and that he was promised belonging through independence, or at least he was give Vern the sense of, I'm not going to leave, I'm not going to go off, kind of what Soul's looking for with an attachment too. And so Vern being overly emotional in that way, in part because of how much maybe mourning Imri, or some other thing that happens. We know, of course, the main reason she becomes a Wayseeker is because of what she fears what happened with Imri. She feared he died in the crash of Starlight. She blames herself for the fall of Starlight, and in part she blames herself for Imri's death, supposedly. And so there's another thing about promising self-acceptance through independence that the Wayseeker can do as well. Again, I wonder if those tensions will come up with Chimera and Vern. It's funny how you guys preface this, and then you're kind of making a joke. Oh, Mother's here, I gotta put the mask on. There is this sense of adolescence, and in not so much the good way, in the sense of, if they were younger, like with Torben, it's more understandable. But at this age, they should know better, and it's kind of their growth is stunted in this way. And so,
I've
kind of bucking against the kind of the call to responsibility, the summons to responsibility. Instead, falling to the dark side.
I made the crude joke of Chimera left his mom to go hang out with Dad, but now Dad kicked him out as well. So now he's kind of on his own. I'm sorry, I had to. Okay. So for the last kind of point of the discussion, I'm going to toss this one to Matthew, my canon buddy, and that is, we've talked a lot about how not everything in Star Wars needs to have big implications. I'm not going into Skeleton Crew thinking that. Oh, he's talking. Well, keep talking. But I've also said that this is very much, especially I think because of the Plagueis and Yoda cameos. And not everything should be because of legacy character cameos, but I do think because of it and some other things, we kind of have a bit of an episode 0 situation here, even though, I don't like using a lot of that 3.95 stuff.
Yeah.
But,
so 3.95.
But the question I'm going to go ask Matthew is, where do you think Acolyte's wider ramifications for the saga and the evolving story that is the Star Wars universe?
So, I mean, my answer starts with some kind of real universe, real world fandom thing of, I saw a tweet the other day saying, are we, sorry,
no.
I'm okay. Breathe through my diaphragm. I saw a tweet the other day that said, are we still celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace, or have we moved on? And my response is, this show is a Phantom Menace party from top to bottom, from beginning to end. And, in universe, we've brought it up, is bring to mind these things in the Phantom Menace will happen, and these characters will remember, oh, this is kind of like what happened there. When news about Anakin and Emergence and this new being that's created through the midichlorians comes up, the council is going to react. The council is going to be all, what's happening?
Yoda's going to react more.
Not this again. At least Yoda will react. Not this again. The rest of the council is going to be on their guard because this is weird and strange and unusual. So it introduces that. Yeah, I think that's another thing about the Plagueis appearance is, whatever his relationship to Chimera is at this point, he's there. He's in the world, literally in the world on Beldemnik. It's called Beldemnik. He's involved. Joel, I do think it is like what you were saying. This is what we've all said is this transition moment from this great golden age of the High Republic to the moment that the Sith start to recognize, okay, it's time to get moving, time to go. We have again with Vern and Raincourt with this emerging here. It's one extremely fringe senator saying, "I don't trust the Jedi." Wait 100 years till they're engulfed in a galactic war that's wildly unpopular, and then not very many people trust the Jedi, and Palpatine can say, "Oh yeah, they tried to assassinate me, and now they're traitors to the Republic. We got to go wipe them out," and people are behind that. And so, it really does. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, Leslie did such a great job of, saying, okay, where are we in the story as established in these books, and where do we have to go as established by George Lucas in these films, and really thought through and charted things through to say, okay, this is the beginning of the end, truly. I do think something about the Nile and some of the Nameless and the lack. I think there's a comment here too. The lack of the chink in the armor a little bit. I don't know if it's as dramatic as Alex is putting it here, but the sense that the Jedi are vulnerable and need to rely on the rest of the galaxy, that will then grow into the Jedi are evil and need to be wiped out. So it feels connected to both High Republic and Late Republic, and of course the whole. I mean, that pushes into the whole Skywalker saga. In ways that are meaningful, and we can clearly see. Joel, I think you might have brought this up. Then Rey is also going to look back and say, okay, what happened here? How did things fall apart? She does that on Octo already, or Luke does that on Octo, and she debates him. So she knows the history. She's going to keep looking at the history and trying to figure out what do we need to do going forward. Well, here's an episode of, back when the council said something sensible, but these few kernels, that's the thing, is these kernels of Jedi like Soul, who then become, well, that's the thing. Soul and May, and Senator Raincourt saying, what if one of them really gets unleashed and unhinged, and we know who that is.
Vernestra's like, we have a few bad apples.
Yeah, and that's her argument. So she's hunkering down, and of course, again, denialism is never worth it. It always backfires. Maybe not in Vern's lifetime, but it'll backfire eventually.
Yeah.
Actually, just that they're making me think. Just popped up. It said Vern's lifetime. Vern looks still very young for 100, and I'm like, how long does she actually could live?
I mean, you never know, but
what does old age look like? And it's like, is it old age or is it?
So what you're saying is we're going to see Vern in the Rey movies? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
Please.
That would be something. That would be something. Actually,
old Vernestra. She like back in my day.
Because I'm thinking,
I wasn't allowed to fly.
What's Tales of the Empire?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, why am I blanking on her name? Barris.
Barris Offee.
We don't quite know when that's. Do we know when that's set?
That is the last episode's like in between episodes 3 and 4, my guess. So
yeah, kind of later. Yeah. But I mean, she's also been worn down. But yeah, maybe he's someone.
Like Kenobi.
I don't know. Who knows how long Mary Ellen's can live? They can make stuff up. Doesn't matter. Anyway.
But I guess on that note, Eddie, final thoughts? Oh, on the
Ash, I'm just curious what you what your thoughts, because you're also definitely a canon junkie.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sense of for the wider implications for the saga.
Well, I think that overall it doesn't really help. Because we see, so phase 2 of the High Republic takes place before phases 1 and 3, because it's the Star Wars model. It's how we do things. Yeah. And so, phase 2, they're starting all of these outposts. They're having a great time. They're doing all of this stuff, right? Phase 1, they're fully entrenched in their outposts. Phase 3, we're already seeing a scale back in the outpost system.
Yeah.
Right? In the Acolyte, there were obviously a few, right? Because Torben was at one, and I think there's probably a few others. By the era of the prequels, do we hear about Jedi outposts?
Yes, one's closing down.
Yeah, they hear them all closing. Yeah, shutting down.
I consider the Living Force an epilogue to High Republic too.
Yeah. So we don't see Jedi at outposts anymore, which means that the people no longer have a connection to the Jedi. Yeah. The Jedi aren't there to help them. And they're being told, oh, the Jedi are here to help. The Jedi will help you. And all of these other things. The Jedi are going to help. They're going to, they're going to make sure that, we don't have to put our own lives on the line in this war. Right? Because the Clone Wars was not, at its core, really a war with two groups of, people specifically fighting. Because the Republic was fighting machines, and the Confederacy was fighting slaves and religious monks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. And so, the droids that were being fought weren't people. There were debates in the Senate about whether the clones deserved rights. Right? We see a homeless clone in Obi-Wan Kenobi that is begging for money.
Yeah.
Right? All of the Jedi get killed. And so there's so much that one can do when the Jedi aren't in the public eye anymore to turn public opinion against them.
Yeah.
If all people see the Jedi do is fight in wars and break stuff and make mistakes and, not stop your village from being burned down, yeah, it's going to make them believe Palpatine when he says something like, the Jedi tried to assassinate me, right? They're going to believe when he's like, hey, the Jedi actually, they sucked. They were evil, right? Because they no longer know who the Jedi are, right? So the people aren't going to trust them. And then following Order 66, like there was, like if you were a Jedi sympathizer, you weren't gonna frickin' do very well, right? Even after the fall of the Empire, and like I'm saying fall of the Empire as like Return of the Jedi, right? The word Sith is never used in the original trilogy. Jedi is, obviously, but the people still don't know who the Jedi are. Yeah. Almost. Like the Jedi Order has been destroyed.
Yeah.
The only thing that some people know about the Jedi is either the rebels who know Luke and can vouch and be like, yeah, Luke's a good guy, or the people who are hearing Imperial propaganda about, hey, this kid who walks around with a lightsaber, yeah, he blew up the Death Star. He killed all of these people, right? Because, again, the Empire wasn't telling the truth about Jedha. It wasn't telling the truth about Alderaan. And so it continued on this, like, anti-Jedi propaganda.
Yeah.
And even after that, like, Rey says in The Force Awakens, oh, Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth. That feeds, like, directly into the whole deification and mysticism of the Jedi Order that is a problem to Luke in The Last Jedi, right? And so all of it comes like kind of full circle, where if you were once part of public life and then you step back, are people going to trust you when they can no longer see you? Because so much of believing for people is seeing, and might not be the healthiest, but for them, they only know what they personally see and what they are personally told. They can't, someone in the outer rim isn't going to be like, oh, well, the Jedi do this and they do this and they do this, because they've never really seen it. The Jedi don't really have a PR person who's like, hey, here's what the Jedi did good this year. Yeah. All right. So it definitely feeds into that whole thing of how is anti-Jedi sentiment handled in basically like across Star Wars. And I think that ties deeply into how do we treat religious people and institutions in our own world.
Right.
Which is probably another discussion for another day.
Oh, it's the one I keep having all the time. Well, no, that's a great point. I mean, Vern was trying to do the PR thing. That's why I was slightly sympathetic to her, because she's trying to put a good face on the institution, but then that leads her to make compromises. Yeah. It's a condemnation. What you're getting at is a condemnation of having a short historical memory, and the fact that people, they only believe what they see. Way of seeing into the past is by remembering and having historical accounts. I mean, shoot, Joel, sorry, what happening in south of the border in your country, and the lack of historical memory and the implications of that, right? Hope we get it and vote in November. And all that. And so all that to say, it's only folks like Beaumont Kin or Reith Silas who can actually summon people to a longer historical memory. Even to say, or just to say, even to say, I talk about residential schools and the church at the time, and not saying about the residential schools, but about the kind of the authority and the centrality of Christian institutions at the time. It was actually, I'd say, a bit more complicated than we tend to think. Not the residential schools, but other parts of society, and the way communities came together and people were ordered, and there are different things that we can listen and learn about and tell stories about and carry on forward to the present day, as I try to do. That some things are more complicated, and to have a longer historical memory, one of the things it can do is to let us question, are we actually on the right track? Are there things about our time, do we have the right to say we've figured it out, we're the more enlightened ones? And a longer historical memory actually doesn't allow you to do that. It says, no, there is no golden age. Every era has its time, has its aspects of great strength and great great posterity, things that we that we've changed should hand on,
Mhm.
and things that we've lost. And
Mhm.
so we need to rediscover. And so, yeah, that is a great point. That one of the I think that's what George was saying with the prequels, right? And throughout Star Wars is that
Yeah.
having that historical memory of saying the Jedi of the High Republic and the middle of the High Republic and then the late Republic were complicated. I mean, that's the thing.
Mhm.
The Jedi in the prequels aren't the villains. They aren't the heroes, but they aren't the villains either.
Mhm.
There's somewhere in
Well,
between.
I've read debating about that in terms of what Lucas thought, but
Maybe they were a bit more heroic. They're more heroic than people give them credit for.
I mean, I'll just say this:
yeah.
this is why we need the Old Republic book initiative or movies, because like
Yeah.
we gotta know how the Jedi were when they were still fighting the
Mhm.
Sith empires, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
like because that's clearly how I think really establishes what the High Republic Jedi are
Yeah.
like. Is like clearly they went through something bad with the
Mhm.
Sith and that
Yeah.
final conflict. That
Mhm.
with
What led
Darth
them to
Vader.
be so benevolent and so creative and so
Yeah.
open to diversity, right? There's something about that's so. I mean, Ash, I think that maybe I don't know if this is what you love about the High Republic, but what I love about the High Republic is it asks this: what if, what if things are actually great between the
Yeah.
Jedi and the Republic,
Yeah.
and then what do they fear losing?
Mhm.
Things not being great between the Jedi and the
Yeah.
Republic.
Well, yeah, I think Kevin's going to explore that some more, but yeah,
But-
And I think that the historical memory thing also ties in to, oh my gosh, once again, I'm going to bring up Mon Mothma, because in the Rogue One book, Alexander Freed basically has this whole thing where she was really interested in history when she was younger,
Mhm.
and actually like wanted to leave politics because of it. And eventually she ended up returning to politics, obviously, because of a sense of duty.
Mhm.
And then in Return of the Jedi from a Certain Point of View, the anthology, there's actually a story. I can't remember who wrote it. But it's called The Chronicler, and it's about the people whose job it is to document
Right.
the things that the rebels are doing, the way that like each individual rebel feels about the cause and things like that, so that there is that historical record,
Mhm.
so that if anything were to happen, you have the honest testimonies of these people rather than the propaganda that would be the only thing that would exist, so.
Honest testimonies that can be found in Rise and Fall of the Empire. I'm going to keep promoting this book because it's exactly what we're talking about.
True.
Go read that.
By an actual real world historian, Chris Kemshaw.
Real.
For real.
Well, he did his dissertation on World War One, and then of course he's Beaumont Canon, whatever. But
yeah. But I think we've all said what we could say about the act. Well, we never can. We've always gonna have more to say about the acolyte. But I think that could do it. I let any final words saying anything.
I think that's it for me. For now.
For now.
Next time you have me back, I'll just more.
Yeah, why not?
Make it happen.
We're gonna. There's a convention coming up in a month.
Exactly.
And
I will be jet lagged. I will be very jet lagged, but I will be there.
Fair. Until then, it is a good time to wrap things up. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining the comments. Some really great comments. Some not so great comments that we take care of, but some really other great comments in the chat. Please do let us know what you thought of The Acolyte as a series, what you thought of as a season 1. Sorry, we've got to say one last thing. D23 announcement. It's gotta be coming.
Please, yes.
Come on.
I can still see Celebration being where they do it, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, maybe Japan, but I think there's a momentum.
If they want the High Republic fandom to scream the convention center down, they can announce it. They can announce it at Celebration. It will be a mistake. Yeah. Japan will sue Star Wars.
They might anyway. They just might anyway.
That's so true.
There you go. Anyways, let us know what you thought of our conversation tonight. Comment boxes are still there. They ain't going anywhere on YouTube as well as Facebook and Twitch. Don't know what's happening with StreamYard and Twitter, but What can you say?
Yeah.
So please, but yeah, on YouTube especially, please do give this video a like and a share. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Ash, it's been great to see you. Great to chat. Thanks again for coming on.
You're
welcome
welcome.
anytime. Be another Canon junkie, High Republic junkie. Where can they find you on the internet?
On the internet, if I want to be found on the platform, you can find me at Bejeweled Mothma. Bejeweled like the Taylor Swift song, Mothma like Mon Mothma. Because best believe she's still bejeweled.
Darn right. Yeah. And remind us again, how is the Mon Mothma project going?
It's going. It's going. I think I only have a couple of Canon novels to finish, and then I'm going to blow through the comics. The TV and film section is already done for the Canon portion of the Monject.
Yeah, the Monject. There we go. The Monject. Yeah. There we go. So yeah, check that out. Is there any? It's not publicly available yet. It's still
not quite. Yeah.
Okay. But hopefully you will make it publicly available at some point when it's ready. Joel, great discussion as always. Where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at JID2021 again, JID2021 on Twitter. Of course, you can follow us at IonCanPod, EYEONCANONPOD. And of course, I'm on the Star Wars Underworld Discord, where we will hopefully be doing a game night on Friday.
There we go. Yeah, check that out. Again, the link in the description below. You follow me on Instagram and Threads, MNEUG1138, and beaches.foodie. Instagram, beaches.foodie. If you want food to populate your timeline. On Twitter, NEUG485. Definitely tweeting about the Olympics, because the Olympics are on. The Olympic soccer tournament. I'm a fan of the sports. I'm aware of the politics, but I'm also a fan of the sports. So I'll take that. Yeah. So check that out. And of course, at Ion Cannon Pod. I'm doing a bit more with Instagram at Ion Cannon Pod. Finally getting on the ball. And of course, you follow the flagship at the SWU. I don't quite know. I know they're in some of them are still in California. Figure what they do on the flagship on Thursday. But I know on Wednesday, I'm going to be right here, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, talking about Vader, talking about Maul, talking about Leia, talking about Alderaan, talking about a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, check me out then. I don't think Chris is going to chime in. He might be able to, but we'll find out. Yes, that comic precisely right there. There we go. The Queen of Alderaan and whatnot. So please do check that out. 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel, etc., where you get all your podcasts. But yeah, until then, next week. What are we doing next week? So I'm taking a break for a month. Clearly, I know. I'm sorry, Joel. I'm clearly under the weather, needing to take some time. I'm not taking a break from Tractor Beam, but for my Ion Cannon for the next number of weeks. I'll hopefully be back in and around Fan Expo to chat about that. Joel, you're taking the reins next week. You got a guest lined up. So you're talking another, Star Wars as a single canon, the classic, the Ion Cannon conversation that we have all the time. So add further insights to that. And then I think you got a guest for the week after that, and then you might be taking a break yourself.
Yes, the week after that will hopefully be a look back at the classic comic book line, Tales of the Jedi by Tom Bike.
Continuing that look back series sounds good. Please do come back right here, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern next Monday, and check out the whole network, Tales from the Galaxy and the Race Side and everything they're up to as well. But until then, Ash, Joel, for Light and Life, let's blow this thing and head home.
Ride the storm.